A millionaire proposed to her after their first kiss. Now he's desperate to claim her heart. Hey there, lovely soul. Welcome back to Noah's Stories. How have you been lately? I hope you're taking gentle care of your heart. Now, settle in, because today's story might just stay with you for a long, long time. Before the morning mist could clear from the rain-slick streets of Portland, Lena Brooks was already behind the counter of a small cafe tucked inside an aging roadside motel. With a simple apron and her curly hair tied into a neat bun, she looked like any young woman trying to survive an early shift. But what most didn't know was that Lena was a hospitality management student, dreaming of one day running a place where everyone felt at home, regardless of what they wore or how much they carried in their wallets. To her, this cafe was everything, a lifeline for rent and tuition and a training ground for the future she was building one cup of coffee at a time. But big dreams came wrapped in harsh truths, sky-high tuition, long hours, and a kind of loneliness that stretched longer than Portland's winter rain. That morning, as Lena wiped down tables and poured fresh brew, she had no idea an email sitting unread in her inbox would change everything. It was an invitation to the Sustainable Travel and Hospitality Gala, a night honoring students with the potential to truly impact the industry. Lena nearly dismissed it as a mistake, but her best friend Maya thought otherwise. "Didn't you always say opportunity usually shows up in uncomfortable clothes?" Maya grinned, holding up a shimmering midnight Jew dress. "Tomorrow night, we make you the dream this industry didn't know it needed." The dress Maya picked hugged Lena's figure flawlessly, the deep midnight Jew fabric catching the light with every step. The borrowed heels made her wobble slightly, but Maya had already fixed her messy bun into a sleek updo and pinned in a sparkling clip that added a touch of glam. As Lena glanced at herself in the motel mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. She didn't look like the girl who brewed coffee at sunrise. She looked like someone who belonged to another world, strange but beautiful. "You're the definition of a glow-up," Maya laughed as they stepped into the car heading downtown. "Tonight isn't about serving people, it's about letting them serve you." Walking into the grand hotel lobby where the gala was held felt like stepping into a scene from a movie. Crystal chandeliers, dreamy jazz music, floor-length gowns, and sharp tuxedos drifting by like a montage in slow motion. Lena gripped Maya's hand tightly, trying to stay calm. "We're not out of place," Maya whispered. "You deserve to be here." Lena accepted a glass of wine from a passing waiter, something she normally handed out herself, and sipped slowly, observing the glittering room. That's when a deep, smooth voice cut through the air behind her. "I've never seen someone look so out of place and yet so perfect at a gala." She turned to find a tall man in a simple but perfectly tailored tux. His eyes, keen, calm, and quietly curious, seemed to cut through the noise and see her clearly. Lena froze. "I'm Ethan Cole," he said with a smile, extending a hand, "and I hope you don't mind me asking, where are you from?" A simple question, and yet it hit Lena harder than she expected. From the rooftop of the hotel, Portland sparkled under a calm night sky. Streetlights shimmered on the river like 1,000 stars drifting backward toward the horizon. Lena leaned against the cold stone railing, inhaling deeply to steady herself after an hour-long conversation with Ethan, the stranger who somehow listened to her in a way few ever had. They had talked about everything, from using hotel services to help the homeless, to how Ethan once dropped out of college to pursue his first tech startup. Between the words, they laughed, debated, and stared at each other, just a bit too long. Ethan stood quietly beside her, watching the city breathe. Then he spoke, his voice low and steady. "I know this sounds insane, but you're the first person in a long time who's made me feel truly connected." Lena turned to him, heart pounding. "I can't explain it," he continued. "I just know. I don't want this night to end like every other. I don't want to lose you to reality." He reached for her hand, his eyes filled with something startlingly sincere. "Lena Brooks, if I told you I wanted to build a life with you, not tomorrow, not next year, but starting right now, would you think I was crazy?" The air seemed to still. Lena didn't answer right away. She just looked at him and then let out a soft laugh, not because it was funny, but because her heart had cracked open with the tiniest spark of hope. "Maybe it is crazy," she whispered, "but the kind of crazy you remember forever." 5:30 a.m. The Portland sky hadn't yet woken, but Lena Brooks was already back in reality. She stood in the cramped staff bathroom of the motel cafe, carefully tying on her black apron and wiping away the last trace of lipstick from the night before. The midnight Jew dress now sat folded in her bag, like a blurry memory she could barely believe had happened. She hadn't told Ethan that by day she poured coffee for budget travelers, that she lived in a tiny studio apartment, constantly choosing between filling her gas tank or buying textbooks. He believed she was a standout student invited to the gala, and that wasn't untrue, just incomplete. She hadn't lied, but she hadn't told the truth either. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Ethan. "Good morning, Lena. I hope you dreamed of me. Dinner tonight?" Her heart tugged. A part of her wanted to say yes without hesitation, but fear crept in. The fear that once he knew the truth, it would all fall apart. She typed a reply, then deleted it, took a breath, tried again. "Dinner sounds nice, but there's something we should talk about." She didn't know how ready she was, but she knew one thing for sure. If life was giving her a second chance to be honest, this time, she wouldn't run. The little Italian restaurant nestled on a quiet corner of Portland glowed with soft candlelight and rustic brick walls. Gentle music played in the background, perfect for a romantic evening. But for Lena, every second felt like a countdown. Ethan sat across from her, handsome in a charcoal gray sweater. His eyes were warm, his voice just as gentle as the night before. But Lena felt the weight of a truth pressing hard against her chest. "You said there was something you wanted to talk about," he smiled, pouring her wine. "What is it?" Lena opened her mouth, ready to tell him everything, the cafe, the apron, the life she'd hidden. But just then, a familiar voice called from behind. "Lena, is that you?" She turned. It was Beth, a regular from the cafe, standing with her family at a nearby table. She smiled brightly, completely unaware. "Almost didn't recognize you without the uniform. We miss your coffee." The air froze. Ethan looked from Beth to Lena. "Uniform?" Lena's grip on her wineglass tightened. "I was going to tell you." "Lena," Ethan cut in, his voice no longer soft. "Where do you work?" She drew a breath. "I work part-time at a cafe and a motel to pay for school. I wasn't ready for you to know that." Ethan leaned back. "It's not the job, Lena. It's that you didn't trust me enough to tell me. You let me imagine someone else." "It's not like that," she rushed. I was afraid you'd see me differently." Ethan nodded slowly, disappointment clouding his eyes. He set his napkin down and rose from his seat. "I thought I was falling for someone real," he said quietly. "And now, I don't know what's real anymore." Lena sat alone, surrounded by candlelight and romantic melodies. But all she could hear was the echo of a truth withheld, and the sense that she'd lost him before he ever really knew who she was. That night, Ethan Cole didn't sleep. He sat in his luxury penthouse, staring into a glass of untouched whiskey. Lena's words echoed in his head, her trembling voice, her pleading eyes, and more than anything, the fear etched across her face. Fear of being seen differently, of not being enough, of losing him if he knew the truth. And he had proven her right. He had walked away not because she worked in a cafe, but because he wasn't strong enough to hear the truth and still see her the same. The next morning, before the sky fully brightened, Ethan stood outside the motel cafe where Lena worked. He wore a simple jacket, his hair still damp from a rushed shower. The door chimed as he stepped in, bringing with him a breath of crisp morning air. Lena was wiping down a table. Her eyes froze when she saw him. "What are you doing here?" Her voice was soft but sharp. "To prove you're not the only one stepping into an unfamiliar world," Ethan said, sincere. "Last night I messed up, and if you'll let me, I'd like to start again, right here, in your world." Lena didn't answer. She just stood there, fingers tightening around the cloth in her hand. Ethan stepped closer, not crossing the space, just resting his hand gently on the counter. Give me a shot, 1 cup of bad coffee, and a chance. A heartbeat passed. Then Lena nodded slowly. The coffee's awful, she whispered. Good, Ethan smiled. I didn't come for the coffee. A week later, Lena Brooks stepped into the most exclusive restaurant in Portland wearing a red dress Maya had picked, elegant, confident, but still unmistakably her. At her side was Ethan Cole, guiding her through the heavy glass doors into Cold Venture's board dinner where his father, Gregory Cole, was waiting. The room quieted as they entered. Every eye turned to Lena, the young woman who had sparked no small amount of gossip after the Italian restaurant incident. Gregory, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, didn't bother to stand. You're late, he said. Right on time, just not your time, Ethan replied calmly. Lena took her seat beside him, spine straight, breath steady. Throughout the meal, she listened, observed, waiting for the right moment. And when Gregory turned to her, tone heavy with implication, and asked, What are you studying, Lena? Hospitality management, she answered without blinking. I also wait tables to pay for school. Silence fell. A few forks paused midair. I believe serving others teaches more than any textbook ever could, she continued. It's taught me to listen, to understand people, and to hold on to dignity, even in the middle of spilled coffee and shouting orders. A younger board member smiled. Even Gregory raised an eyebrow, as if he hadn't expected that answer. Ethan squeezed her hand beneath the table. Lena hadn't let anyone define her, and Ethan knew she had just won that room. 2 days after the board dinner, Lena Brooks' name flooded entertainment sites. The waitress who won the CEO's heart, true love or calculated move. They dug up everything, old college photos, financial records, even her scholarship applications. What was once a sweet love story turned into suspicion, mockery, and judgment. Her hands trembled as she scrolled past headlines calling her a fraud, a gold digger. Her chest ached with shame, not for who she was, but for how little she believed anyone could love her for it. Ethan called again and again, but she hadn't found the strength to answer. I just need to breathe, to be mad, to be sad, to just exist, she whispered to Maya, who sat beside her, holding her hand tightly. Then, knock knock. Maya went to the door and returned, eyes wide. It's Ethan. No driver, no bodyguards, just him. Lena hesitated, then slowly walked to the door and opened it. Ethan stood there, hair tousled, eyes tired, but gaze unwavering. I'm sorry I didn't protect you sooner, but I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere. Lena looked at him, tears streaming down her cheeks. She said nothing, but when Ethan stepped forward and gently took her hand, she didn't pull away. Because even in the storm, she saw he was still choosing her. Early summer sunlight drifted lazily through the streets of Portland, casting a warm stripe across the window pane of Lena Brooks' modest apartment. Today was her graduation day. Her navy blau cap and gown hung neatly on a hook. Beside them, a small velvet box sat slightly ajar. Inside, a simple yet elegant engagement ring. The tiny diamond caught the morning light, reflecting not just sparkle, but a year's worth of growth, grit, and grace. Lena stood before the mirror, her hair pinned neatly, her face composed and calm. Beneath her gown, she wore the same navy dress she'd worn that night at the Italian restaurant, the night when past and future collided. A knock on the door. She opened it to find Carlos, the aging chef from the café, dressed in a slightly ill-fitting suit but beaming with pride. The chariot for the graduating bride has arrived, he said, eyes twinkling. I'm not getting married today, Lena laughed. Maybe not officially, but it's the day my girl steps into her new life. That's big enough to celebrate. Lena hugged him tightly. Behind Carlos, a silver SUV waited by the curb, and standing beside it, Ethan Cole. He wore a tailored suit, but his tie was loose and his hair slightly tousled, evidence of nervous fingers. When he saw Lena emerge, his eyes lit up in that way she'd never grown tired of. Looks like I'm marrying a college graduate, he teased, opening the door for her. No, Lena replied as she stepped into the car. You're marrying a woman who's no longer afraid of your world. The graduation ceremony unfolded beneath the bright skies of Portland University's campus. Name after name was called, and then came a voice over the speakers. Lena Brooks. The crowd erupted. From the stands, Carlos let out a proud whistle. Maya waved a mini flag, and Ethan stood up, clapping like Lena had just won Olympic gold. Beside him, Gregory Cole, once cold and distant, gave a small but unmistakable nod. Quiet, but heavy with meaning. Lena crossed the stage, accepting her diploma, eyes shimmering with tears, but her smile steady. It wasn't just a piece of paper. It was a seal on every early morning, every double shift, every genuine smile she'd given to customers while chasing a dream. After the ceremony, in a hidden garden behind the campus, decorated with fairy lights and fresh flowers thanks to Maya's secret planning, Ethan pulled Lena aside. His hand trembled slightly. "I have a graduation gift," he said. Lena smiled, expecting flowers, maybe a trip. Instead, Ethan handed her a stack of documents, the cover stamped with the logo of a scholarship foundation in her name. "I bought the cafe you used to work at," he said. "Carlos is retiring, and it's ours now, Lena's Cafe. But it won't just be a cafe, it'll be a community hub, a place to train students, offer scholarships, and create the kinds of chances you once wished for." Lena went still. "You'll be the honorary director," Ethan smiled, "with full control over everything we build." She threw her arms around him, tears streaming down her face. She whispered, "You know, all of this started with a terrible cup of coffee." Ethan chuckled, "And I'll drink it forever if it means sitting across from you." 2 weeks after graduation, Lena's Cafe closed its doors for one special day, for a wedding. There was no red carpet, no string quartet, just freshly mopped old wooden floors, string lights dangling from the ceiling, and white tablecloths with wild daisy centerpieces. The flower, Lena always said, was cheap, honest, and cheerful. The air still carried the faint smell of coffee, now mixed with candle wax and the quiet laughter of those who mattered. Maya, Carlos, the scholarship students, old cafe staff, even Beth, the regular customer who once accidentally exposed Lena in front of Ethan, now arranging the wedding cake like she had always been part of the love story. "You sure about this?" Ethan whispered as they stood in the back kitchen, hands intertwined. Lena nodded. "This is where you stepped into my world. There's nowhere better to start our life together." The ceremony began with Carlos officiating, his voice shaky but determined. When he said, "If anyone objects to this marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace," the cafe erupted in laughter, including Gregory Cole, who had never quite gotten used to joy during formal events. After vows and their first kiss as husband and wife, they raised coffee mugs, not champagne flutes, and Ethan whispered in Lena's ear, "This is the best coffee I've ever had." Following the reception, as guests finished their cake and swayed to soft jazz under fairy lights, a silver-haired woman walked through the cafe door, holding a weathered wooden box. "Sorry I'm late," she said to Lena. "I was a friend of your mother's. She gave me this, said to pass it to you on your wedding day." Lena froze. She opened the box to find a handwritten letter in the slanted script she remembered from childhood, a letter from her mother, gone for many years. "My daughter, I won't be there to see you in your wedding dress, but I always knew you'd get there. Never believe that where you start defines where you'll end up. Keep your heart kind, your hands working, and your eyes wide open. Because one day, you won't just step into a new world, you'll build one of your own. Mom." Lena folded the letter, tears flowing freely. Ethan came to her side, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. He didn't say anything, because in his eyes, everything had already been said. That night, beneath the glow of string lights, to soft jazz and warm mugs of coffee, Lena knew. She had everything she ever dreamed of, and more.